The darkness pressed in around me as I lay sprawled on the cold, damp stone floor. My body ached from the impact, but I had no time to dwell on the pain. The shadows that had thrown me down loomed, shifting unnaturally, their essence pulsating like living ink. The voice inside my head repeated its warning, a whisper laced with malice. You should have left. Now you are bound, too. My breath hitched, and I forced myself to move, my hands scraping against the floor as I crawled toward Emily. She was still kneeling before the cursed altar, her hands bound in thick, rusted chains. The glow from the symbols on the walls flickered, casting eerie shapes across her pale face. Her eyes locked onto mine, filled with urgency. You have to break the chains, she gasped, before they take you, too. My hands trembled as I reached for the iron shackles, but the moment my fingers made contact, a searing pain shot up my arm. I recoiled with a cry, clutching my wrist as the chains pulsed with unnatural energy. The shadows around us began to stir, their whispers growing louder, more insistent. The walls seemed to close in, the air thickening with a suffocating pressure. Emily's expression twisted in pain as she struggled against her restraints. You have to use the dagger, she gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. It's the only way. A dagger? My mind raced. I frantically scanned the room, my gaze falling on the altar. Resting atop it was an ornate obsidian blade, its surface etched with the same glowing symbols that adorned the walls. I hesitated for only a moment before lunging forward, seizing the weapon. The instant my fingers wrapped around the hilt, a jolt of cold shot through my veins, as though something ancient had awakened inside the blade. The whispers in the room turned to shrieks. The shadows recoiled, writhing like wounded serpents. I turned back to Emily, gripping the dagger tightly. What do I do? I shouted over the cacophony of voices. She met my gaze, desperation flickering in her eyes. Cut the chains! Without another thought, I raised the blade and brought it down on the iron links. The moment the dagger's edge made contact, a blinding light erupted from the metal. A shockwave burst outward, throwing me back. I hit the ground hard, the dagger flying from my grasp. My ears rang, my vision swimming with spots of white. Then, silence. Slowly, I pushed myself up, blinking against the haze. Emily was free. She was on her knees, staring at her hands in disbelief. The shackles lay in pieces around her, their remnants dissolving into nothingness. But before relief could set in, the walls of the basement trembled. A guttural roar shook the air, reverberating through my very bones. The shadows gathered, congealing into a singular form. A towering figure, its presence suffocating, emerged from the darkness. Its eyes burned with an otherworldly fire, its elongated limbs twitching unnaturally. You dare defy the pact? Its voice was a thunderous growl, rattling the very foundations of the house. Emily scrambled to her feet, grabbing my hand. We have to go, she screamed. I barely had time to react before she was pulling me toward the staircase. The creature lunged, its clawed hand swiping inches from my back. The air turned frigid as we ran, our breath coming out in desperate gasps. The house groaned, its structure warping around us. We reached the top of the stairs, but the door slammed shut before we could escape. Emily turned, her hands fumbling to pry it open. I turned as well, my heart hammering as the entity ascended the steps, its burning gaze locked onto us. My mind raced. The dagger, it had weakened the chains. Maybe it could do the same to whatever bound this entity to the house. I spun, searching for the blade. It had landed a few feet away, partially buried beneath a pile of debris. Without thinking, I dove for it, my fingers closing around the hilt just as the creature reached me. Its clawed hand wrapped around my arm, ice-cold and suffocating. I screamed as pain shot through me, but I didn't let go of the dagger. Summoning every ounce of strength, I drove the blade into the creature's chest. Time seemed to stop. A deafening screech filled the air, and the house shuddered violently. The creature convulsed, its form splitting apart as an explosion of light burst from within. The force of it sent me flying backward, slamming into the door. The wood splintered under the impact, and suddenly we were outside. Emily and I tumbled onto the front lawn, gasping for air. Behind us, the house groaned one final time before collapsing inward, swallowed by the very darkness it had harbored for so long. For a moment, neither of us moved. The night was eerily silent, the world holding its breath. Then Emily turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "You saved me," she whispered. My body ached, my mind still reeling from what had happened. But as I looked into her eyes, I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. The whispers still lingered at the edge of my consciousness, a reminder that the darkness was not so easily defeated.